Bob Huttinga. Welcome to the last session of the afternoon here, the Senior Enrichment Day. Hope you're all enjoying yourselves. This seems to be a very popular venue where people come and learn. I think it's really important as seniors that we continue to learn about ourselves. Today we're going to talk about homeopathy. Many people think that homeopathy and natural medicine are exactly the same thing, but they're not. I hear people say, well, they're doing homeopathic remedy and they're taking herbs. These things are actually very different. Homeopathy is a complete medical system, complete therapeutic system, and I use a combination of prescriptions and herbs and homeopathy and oils. So we use a lot of different remedies. But I met a doctor a few years ago from Chicago who had been in practice 23 years and had not written a single prescription. Everything was done homeopathic. And that's pretty impressive. I don't have that kind of knowledge, but it's a really excellent tool. So let's go on here, and this is kind of an overview. We're going to talk about homeopathic medicine. We'll also talk a little bit about natural and holistic health. Please ask questions as we go. And I'm going to send this little clipboard around. If you are on the internet and you'd like to get our newsletter.
I'm not on the internet.
No, I have no computer.
Internet?
I don't either.
I don't either.
You have email?
Not unfortunately.
Okay. Well, just hand it around if anybody wants to get our newsletter.
No,
We publish about
newsletters.
on every month or so. We send out a newsletter.
Do you have an internet?
No.
My introduction to the world of homeopathy came with my own health situation. This is about 15 years ago now. I had a very bad case of influenza. I had gotten reactive to flu shots and got really sick every time I did a flu shot. So I was not doing that and had a bad reaction to, or had a really bad case of the flu. And one of my patients said, you ought to try a celecoxanil. So this little word here, hard to say, hard to spell, and I had never heard of that. But they sold it at Walgreens, and so I stopped at Walgreens, picked up a bottle of this. In the box was 6 little tiny vials, and the instructions were take 1 vial 4 times a day for 2 or 3 days. So well, put them in my mouth, held them in my mouth, let them dissolve. Took 1 dose about 6 o'clock, another dose about 9, went to bed, woke up in the morning, 100% better. Unbelievable. I couldn't understand how this could be, because normally influenza takes quite a period of time. And then, after 10 days and you're able to get out and about, you still feel tired and fatigued for a while. So there was a woman next to in the next town over in Edinburgh who had been a homeopath. She's still there, but she'd been practicing homeopathy for about 10 or 15 years. And so I went to see her and asked her if she'd come and teach a class at her store. And she agreed to do that. So she came once a month. And after about the 4th class, I realized that I needed to learn more about this. And so I hooked up with an online program with a Dr. Robin Murphy out of Blacksburg, Virginia. And we go down there to a live class every 3 months, and then the rest of it was done on the internet. But what's happened with that for me is it's just become an amazing tool that adds to my therapeutic tools. So the big question here, what is health? Most people think of it as the absence of disease, but it's really being able to do anything you want to do, having enough energy to do those things without any limitations. So in natural medicine, we focus on this kind of concept rather than the health. So we start our lives with what we call our constitutional level of health. These are the results of our parents' genetics and the effects of the pregnancy. So if your mother had a good and healthy diet, she didn't smoke, and there wasn't too much emotional trauma during your pregnancy, things develop pretty nicely. But occasionally there's congenital or genetic disorder. And then as we go through our lives, things happen to us. Now most of the time, what we want is that when we recover from an illness or an emotional shock, that we exit that at the same level of health that we had at the beginning. But sometimes we don't. Sometimes a big thing happens to us and it really knocks us down. And I hear people frequently say, I haven't been well since I had that strep throat 4 years ago, or since I had pneumonia 20 years ago, or since I had mono when I was a teenager. Sometimes these things affect us for our whole lives. And then there are things that influence our ability to recover. So things that are, we call deficiencies. If you don't have enough vitamins in your system, minerals, you don't get enough love, you don't have enough chondroitin, you're going to have arthritis. You have excesses, alcohol, tobacco, too much food. All of these things influence our ability to recover. And then at the end of these things, if things really deteriorate, eventually we have pathology or destruction of tissue. So traditional medicine focuses on the disease, the problem. You've got to have lab results. You've got to have test results that tell you what's going on. In homeopathy and natural medicine, we focus on symptoms. It gives us functional, what's going on in your body that's not functioning correctly. You don't have to have a diagnosis. So we focus on these deficiencies and the excesses. And we try to find root causes. If there's a deficiency, then we build that. If there's an excess, we do cleansing. Get rid of those toxins and those things. Now, in natural medicine, there's nutrition, supplements, herbs, homeopathy. All of these things are different modalities that you can use to stay well or to get well if you have an illness. We like to make the corrections before the pathology develops. So in my earlier class, I talked about arthritis. We want to see people, when they start having joint pain, heal the cartilage, replace the lubrication, get rid of the bones first, so you don't end up with bone-on-bone knee having to have a joint replacement. So natural therapeutics include nutrition, hygiene, that's exercise and elimination of waste, supplements, herbs. In the herbs, there's plants and essential oils, homeopathics, condiment, and what are called Bach flower. And then in natural therapeutics, there's chelation therapy and also energy medicine. I'm not going to talk about these, but there's Reiki, healing touch, acupuncture, Qigong, Tai Chi. These are all things that we can use to help ourselves.
What's chelation therapy?
Chelation is a way to remove heavy metals from your body. So it's a way to kind of cleanse things out of the system. IV chelation can be used to clean the plaque out of arteries. There's a clinic in Grand Rapids, Bourne Clinic, they do chelation there. And you sit for an hour and a half, you do an IV, and it starts to clean out the plaque. And it takes about 20 to 40 treatments, depending on how much you got built up. And insurance that don't cover it, it's a little pricey. But it really does work.
I've never heard.
Yeah. So what we're going to focus on right now is homeopathic remedies. And I'm going to give you what we call the 12 remedies to know. There's actually like 3,000 homeopathic remedies. And we're not going to focus on those. I don't even use that many. I use a couple hundred. But I'm going to give you 12 of them today and then give you a little handout so you can use these things in your daily life. But Samuel Hahnemann, he He was the one that really created the whole concept of homeopathic medicine. And he created 43 remedies in the 40 years that he practiced. And it was really all-consuming. His wife also helped him in his work. And after he died, she continued on and perfected a few more remedies. But like I said, now there's about 3,000 homeopathic remedies. And it's a complete system. So here's some examples of homeopathic remedies. Allium cepa is made from onions. Now, what happens when you peel an onion? You get burny eyes, you get a runny nose, and so when somebody has a symptom like seasonal allergies, where you get runny nose, runny eyes, burny eyes, we use homeopathic medicine, Allium cepa, which is made from onions, and it reverses that process. There's another example. Ipecac guana is a homeopathic remedy made from ipecac. Ipecac can cause you to vomit. The homeopathic remedy stops vomiting. Lachesis is made from snake venom. Now, if you get bit by a snake, the snake has an anticoagulant in their venom, and so you get this big bruise. Well, lachesis helps to remove bruises, and it helps dissolve blood clots. I'll give you a really nice example. I had this lady, she's 96. She had a bleed in her brain called a subdural hematoma, and it was so big that they took her to surgery. They took part of her skull off, evacuated out that big clot, and the next day in the hospital she then had a stroke. So she not only had a bleed, but then she had a clot stroke. And because of this bleed, they couldn't give her TPA or any of the medicines that dissolve clots. So they literally sent her home with hospice and just told her family there's no way she can survive. The stroke had affected her speech and her swallow mechanism. And she did not want a feeding tube, so they just sent her home. Told the family a week or two, about all she has left. Well, one of her sons, she had 14 kids, one of her sons is a patient of mine, and he was telling me about this, and I said to him, well, let's give her a try on this lachesis and an enzyme called natozymes. This is an enzyme that breaks up blood clots. So we gave her some lachesis and natozymes, and a couple days later he called me and said, you aren't going to believe this, but Mom's eating and she's talking. Wow. So she got so much better that in about 2 months she went back to Butterworth, and they opened her back up, put her skull back on, and they put it in a freezer somewhere, I guess. And, it's pretty interesting. Anyway, she's doing great. It's been about a year, and a bit of dementia from the whole process, but actually doing really well. So the idea with homeopathy is that these are tools. These are additional things that you can do over the counter that are readily available and have a lot better specificity than Tylenol or taking an aspirin or cold medicine. I use homeopathy about 30 patients that have had whooping cough. Most of these are Amish, and we've had really good results. So, a little bit of background here, how homeopathic remedies are made. They're made by dilution and succussion. Now, succussion just means shaking. So, when the original remedies were made, what Hahnemann was doing was he was treating people who were highly sensitive. And so, what he was doing was taking medicines and diluting them. So, he'd dilute them, and then he'd shake them. And that word is called succussion. So he'd make this up, this dilution, he'd shape it, make another dilution from that, and he'd shape it. And when these dilutions were made 10 to 1, they were called X potencies, Roman numeral X. When they were 100 to 1, they were called C potencies. And there were also M potencies. Originally, those were 1,000 to 1, but it's a little different now as far as how we make them. So, to make a homeopathic remedy, you take some herb, usually, and you soak it in alcohol. And that liquid becomes a mother tincture. So let's say you're going to make a homeopathic remedy from mountain daisy. Mountain daisy is something that grows in the Rocky Mountains. It's actually a poisonous plant. Mix it with alcohol, it extracts out some of the chemistry in the plant, and now you have a tincture. So the mountain daisy tincture, if you were to drink it, it would actually be poisonous. You can put it on your skin, it doesn't bother you. But if you dilute it using this homeopathic dilution method, you created a homeopathic remedy called arnica. And I will talk in more detail about arnica in a little bit. So you have the mother tincture, you do a dilution, 10 to 1 or 100 to 1 to make these remedies. They're very inexpensive. A vial of these that have about 80 little pellets in them are about $10. So how does homeopathy work? Well, it actually works at the energy level, at the subatomic level, whereas traditional and herbal medicine work at the cell level and at the molecule level. And it works by vibrational harmonics. So some of you are musicians. If you pluck a guitar string, what happens to the other strings on the guitar? They begin to vibrate, right? That's called harmonics. So what happens is the remedy has a vibration, and so does the symptom in your body, the condition in your body. So when you're sick, the vibrational frequency in the tissues are different than the vibrational frequency when you're healthy. So the remedy has the ability to modify that vibrational frequency in your body, and that's called vibrational harmonics. So the frequency of the remedy matches the healthy frequency of the dysfunctioning cells and brings them back to normal. Now the effects are established by provings, and when Hahnemann was doing this, he would have a remedy that he was working on, and he'd get all of his friends to take it, and he would take it until they got sick. Whatever symptoms they had, he recorded those symptoms, and after he had 200 or 300 people that had taken this remedy and reported all the symptoms, then he started looking for people who were sick that had those symptoms and the people that were doing the provings, and he would see if he could get those people to be better. Now, that's why it took him 40 years to perfect 40 remedies. Lots and lots and lots of trial and error. They also took some information from accidental poisonings. So where people were poisoned by a particular product or chemical or plant, what were the symptoms that occurred around the poisoning, and then what would they do to get rid of that? So the remedies were then given to patients with those complaints, and the natural healing mechanism stimulated everything back to health. I'll give you a couple of examples. I had a friend who was a physician assistant. One morning, she was about 50 years of age. She woke up and she had this big black cobweb in about 3/4 of the vision in one of her eyes. Well, what had happened was the vitreous, that's the gel inside the eyeball, separated from the retina, and it pulled loose a bunch of veins, and those had died, and they were in her eye like a big floater. Well, the ophthalmologist said 6 to 8 weeks, and it would disappear. We gave her this remedy, phosphorus, once a day, and in 1 week it was gone. Now, we use this for cataracts. I've had about 6 cases of cataracts that have disappeared. It's not supposed to happen. Certainly your eye doctor isn't going to tell you that that can happen, because we don't really understand that. Glaucoma. And several people that have had allergies to the glaucoma medicines can't do the eye drops, and using phosphorus have been control their glaucoma. Well, this is just the same thing I was just talking about. This is a 74-year-old guy had a big spur in his neck, and we used homeopathic carrier carbonicum and herbal hydrangea, and we're able to resolve that spur. So we got range of motion back and decreased his pain in his neck by about 60%. This woman, 38-year-old, had a reaction to a flu shot. 2 weeks after a flu shot, she woke up, couldn't get out of bed. She had a severe case of fibromyalgia. So weak, so much pain in her muscles, she was unable to work. When I met her, it had been 18 months. She'd been at a Mayo and a couple of other big places, and they basically said, you know, you're stuck. You're going to have to take medicines to control the pain. And she was really unable to work more than 1 day a week. We use this remedy, homeopathic calcium, 200C, at minimum means it was diluted 1 to 100, 200 times. She took it twice a day. It should say 5 days instead of 5 doses. And within about 2 weeks, she started to change. She totally recovered. About 3 months later, she had a relapse, and we treated her again with the same remedy. And it's been 5 or 6 years now that she is totally recovered back to work. 4-year-old with chronic ear infections, took them off of dairy, gave them homeopathic camellia. We use this for teething, we use it for colic, for babies that have colic. This is an amazing remedy for that. Kids that have nervous stomachs, you know, grandkids or great-grandkids that don't want to go to school, you get stomach aches in school. This works really well. This was a kid that had really severe ADHD. When he came, he was on Adderall, Risperidol, and Vistarol. These are quite powerful medicines. This is basically an antipsychotic medicine and bad side effects. We used homeopathic coffee. Now, if you drink too much coffee, what happens? You get all jittery and nervous and jumpy. So the reverse of that, that's what happens. Homeopathic coffee reverses that. And it worked really quite well. After a month or so, though, he started kind of having some symptoms, and we used tarantula. This is made from the venom of a tarantula. And when people get bit by a tarantula, they get into this really hyper state. They dance and sing, and it's very fascinating. A lot of these ADHD kids, they love music, they love to dance. Some of them respond really well to that remedy. I really don't understand who figured all this out, but it's pretty amazing. This is the woman that had a non-union fracture. She broke her lower leg. 5 months it hadn't healed. We use this symphytum and something called bioplasma. This works really well for osteoporosis, by the way. But within 3 weeks she had new bone. Took another 6 weeks or so to get it completely healed, but it was pretty exciting. This is a little boy that had a severe anxiety reaction, separation anxiety. The story was that his mother had had a bad reaction to a pain shot during delivery, and she almost died, and consequently he almost died. They were able to revive her and get him out. But after this, he had this terrible separation anxiety. She couldn't even go to the bathroom or take a shower, except he would sit at the door and cry until she came back out. So we gave him a remedy that we would use for a narcotic reaction. And a single dose totally resolved that situation. All right. 12 remedies to know. First one is homeopathic arnica. made from mountain daisy. Use this for injuries, bruises, sprains, strains. This particular remedy is probably one of the most popular. Let's take one and pass it back. But we see these ankle sprains, big, fat, swollen, purple ankles that normally would take about 2 months to heal. Pass one back to that young lady also. They'll be healed in about 2 to 3 weeks. And what we find is that the sooner you use the remedy, the better. So the sooner you use the remedy, the better. And the worse the injury, the more frequently you should use the remedy. Every household should have this in it. And 30C or 30X if you have children, little children. Sprains, strains, bruises, swollen ankles, shock, very good for closed head injuries. So even if you just bang your head a little bit, it's a good idea to take this remedy. It helps prevent this cumulative trauma syndrome that they're now seeing in football players and other people that have recurrent head injuries. This is not good for chronic pain. So if you have arthritis or something where you have chronic pain, this really isn't very helpful. This is for acute injuries, so new injuries. So a new injury, the worse the injury, the greater the frequency. So a lot of times with an ankle sprain, first day we'll use a single pellet every 15 or 30 minutes. If the injury is a couple days old, then we go to 4 or 5 times a day. Now when you buy the little bottle, it'll say on the bottle 5 pellets 3 times a day. It says the same recommendation on every bottle. What we've found is a single pellet works just as good as 5, and it's going to be a lot more economical for you. And instead of 3 times a day, if it's an acute injury, you do it more frequently. I had an experience with this. I whacked my little finger with a hammer, and I always carry arnica in my toolbox. So I grabbed some. I started taking it every 10, 15 minutes, and by the end of the day, the pain was completely gone. Well, it turned out that I had a fracture in that little tuft in bone, and I could take my fingernail, move it back and forth, and had absolutely no pain. It was completely pain-free. Did a little Symphytum in about a week. It quit clicking, and it all healed up just perfect. So the sooner you have an injury of any kind, just slip and hurt your back a little bit, start on the arnica right away. The next remedy that we like is apis. Now, apis is made from ground up honeybees. So if you're off in the wilderness someplace and you get stung by a bee, you can actually make your own homeopathic remedy to help get rid of that sting. Now, hopefully you'll never have to do that, but you could. We use it for hives as well, and for anaphylactic reactions to bees. If you have severe bee allergy, you should have a EpiPen around so that if you get a bad reaction, you can use that EpiPen if you have trouble breathing or swallowing. You shouldn't use an EpiPen unless you have those symptoms. What you do then is you take the remedy right away. If you're having trouble breathing or swallowing, you head for the emergency room, do your EpiPen. But what we're seeing now is when people use this, by the time they get to the ER, they're actually pretty stable and they don't have to go and have additional treatment. If you do use an EpiPen, you should go to the ER. They do wear off after about 30, 45 minutes. But we're seeing a lot of people now that have reduced their sensitivity using this, but you still want to be cautious. If you are that sensitive and you get stung, get close to help in case things go bad. We already talked about Calcarea carbonicum for arthritis. The 6C is the strength that you want to use for that. So if you use this with hydrangea to get rid of bone spurs, make sure that you're using a 6C, not 30C. Your health food store probably have to order that because they normally don't stock it. If you are using hydrangea for bone spurs, use it 25 days a month and take 5 days off. This keeps the medicine from being losing its effectiveness. Herbs, if you take them all the time, often lose their effectiveness.
Bob, did you say that you take it 5 days on, 5 days off?
No, 25 days on
25 on.
and then 5 off. So we tell people take day 1 through 25 of each month. And then on a 31-day month, you take 6 days off. This is a very good remedy, Cantharis. It is used for burning with urination. It's also good for thermal burns, blisters. We always take this on vacation because women frequently get bladder infections when they travel. Your dietary changes, your water changes, things like that, maybe swimming more. This is very good for burning with urination, but also good for thermal burns and blisters. It takes the pain out of them. Sunburns, works great for sunburn. And any kind of blister, not blisters from shingles. We have another remedy for that, but it's more of a burn remedy. Camellia, we talked about that already. Great for earaches, teething, colic. It's made from German chamomile flowers. This is the one we use for whooping cough. It's called Drosera. 30X for little kids, 30C for adults, 200C if somebody is very, very ill. Now, this is for barky kind of cough. And what happens with whooping cough is they cough, 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 and then when they inhale, they make that whoopy noise. Whooping cough, if you let it run its full course, it takes 3 months to get better. So, if you have grandkids or great-grandkids or kids that are ill, if their coughs don't get better, they should be checked for pertussis or whooping cough, because there is some in the community in the winter. Even in kids that are immunized, we're starting to see it. If you catch it right away, very treatable. But once it gets into the second month, it's very hard to treat. Even homeopathically, we've had some difficulty. So you've got to really get on it right away. Gelsemium, we talked about that with that woman that had the reaction to the flu shot. We use it for chronic fatigue following viral illnesses. So when people come to us and they say, I haven't been well since I had mono when I was a teenager, we use this remedy, and I would say 90% of them have improvement in their fatigue. Pretty remarkable. We also use it for acute mono, and the 30C version of Gelsemium can be used for performance anxiety. So anybody that has stage fright or public speaking phobia, test taking, kids that get nervous when they take tests, or yourself if you're taking a test for something, this works very well. Ignatia is probably the best thing I've seen for grief. Grief is a process, and we don't use this right away, but a month or two after someone has passed, if they're suffering and not moving through the grieving process, we'll start them on Ignatia. This is really good for kids that have, had a crush on somebody and they break up with their, favorite girlfriend or boyfriend, and they're just really struggling. This works really well for that. This one we talked about before, great for nausea and vomiting. And this was a remedy that I talked about. That was my introduction to homeopathy. It's about $18 for retail for a box of 6 vials. And actually a half a vial works just as good as a whole vial. You can use it for treatment and you can use it for prevention. So this is what I use now instead of a flu shot. Half a vial once a week. And I'll start usually around the 1st of December. Flu hasn't really hit yet, but I want it in my system when the first flu cases start coming around. Now, if we ever get in a problem with bird flu or swine flu, this is a preventive remedy that people should be taking. If you're doing it for treatment, 1 dose, half a vial, 3 to 4 times per day for just 2 or 3 days. And most cases are like mine, people turn them right around. Very, very good. In Europe, this is all they use. They don't do flu shots in Europe. They sell 14 million boxes of this stuff a year in the country or in the world. This probably doesn't apply to you folks too much, which might have children or grandchildren or in-laws that are pregnant. This is a phenomenal thing for morning sickness. I've only seen a couple of cases where it didn't work and then there were other things going on. Sometimes a single dose totally stops it. My daughter had taken 1 dose a day. Before she started it, she was vomiting in spite of the Zolfram prescription medicine that she'd been given. So if you know anybody who has that issue, it's some big long words, Poricarpus racemosa, that's how you say that.
Now, do these have a shelf life?
Well, the manufacturer puts a shelf life on them, but they're about 10 years.
Oh.
Technically, they don't.
Okay.
They're still using remedies that Hahnemann made 200 years ago. Symphytum we did talk about a little bit already. We use it for bone healing, fractures, osteoporosis. With osteoporosis, I have people take Symphytum once a week. So they just do a single dose once a week, and it helps take care of any little microfractures that are happening as the bones have kind of deteriorated. Over here you see the bone density of a normal bone, and this is what the osteoporotic bone looks like. So these little bone bridges that should be carrying a lot of stress, there just aren't as many of them there. Using the bioplasma that I talked about earlier, this is a remedy that has 12 cell salts in it. And all of these are used to make your bone. There's silica in there. Silica comes from sand. We need a certain amount of silica in our bones. A lot of times we don't have any source of getting that unless you're eating, dirty carrot right out of the garden. But because of hygiene, we've been taught, you don't eat that stuff. So a lot of times we just don't have it in our diet.
I remember as a child being told we had to eat a peck in our lifetime
Yeah.
to be healthy.
Excellent. Exactly.
My son used to like to go out in the garden and pull a carrot out, like when I was bad and eat it.
Oh, yeah. That's what's really good.
So people aren't doing that nowadays. And we
I
have
used to
trained
say
ourselves
so.
that everything has to be clean and everything has to be free of germs.
But it's all processed different too than it used to be.
Yes, very much so.
A lot of different stuff around today too.
So, think about homeopathy as a tool. It isn't necessary to learn 3,000 remedies, but start with these 12. There's a couple of good books out there. I wrote it down here. Homeopathy for Professionals and Lay People, written by Blair Lewis, who's also a PA. He spent he started his career in Ann Arbor. He worked for Dr. Dennis Sherman, who was quite a famous homeopath. And Blair worked there with him for about 25 years. And he has a list of 25 remedies to know. And so he expands that a little bit. But the idea is to just get to know a few things, have some remedies a few years ago.
Allergic reactions to any of these?
Um,
Does that happen?
Technically, you cannot have an allergic reaction because most of them, there's nothing in it. Well, not that it's natural because you can have allergic reaction to herbs. But because it's made by dilution, there's actually none of the original remedy, the original mother tincture left in it. But you can have what we call aggravations. And that's a situation where it makes the existing symptoms worse. If you have that, it's because you got too strong a remedy. And all you do is go down to a lower potency and it'll solve the problem. I did this once in my early days of using homeopathy. I had a patient that had eczema. Whoa! Talking to myself. Supposed to be recording, not waiting. Anyway, this gal had eczema. She had a little patch on her wrist, but she had severe eczema when she was a child, and she'd been given a lot of steroids, steroid creams, and it was pretty much under control. But one of the remedies that we use for eczema is something called sulfur. Well, I was pretty ignorant. Instead of using a low dose of sulfur, low potency, I gave her a sulfur 200. And it created an aggravation that just blew her up for 2 weeks. And I was just sick, but she's never had a single episode again. That's been 12 years ago. Well, that wasn't the way to cure it. Could have done the same thing with a 6C remedy once a week, and she'd have got the same result. Yeah. So I hardly ever use the 200s. The old mono and the old flu reactions, we know that most people can tolerate that. We use mostly 30s, 6s, 12s, so I hardly ever see an aggravation.
What do you recommend for gout?
There's a really good remedy called colchicum, and it's actually made from colchicine, which is the prescription medicine for gout. But that actually works really well. The biggest thing for gout is dietary change, red meats, and beer and wine. It looks like you drink too much beer or wine. If you have gout, there's foods that aggravate it, and certainly alcohol in the form of beer and wine.
Now, my daughter said her doctor said she had pseudo gout.
Pseudogout is a condition instead of uric acid crystals, calcium pyrophosphate crystals form in the joints. And I have not had any experience with the colchicum on that, but hydrangea works really well with that. Because the calcium pyrophosphate dissolves those crystals. So one of those 3 times a day usually will fix that up.
So for hydrangea, that is dilution.
No, just hydrangea capsules. Hydrangea is an herb. It's actually a root. So 1 capsule 3 times a day for probably a month, maybe 2. All right, any other questions?
Where do you get all these? At Healing Center? Or
Well, you can get them at our place, but there's an herb shop here in town. Most health food stores stock homeopathic medicine.
And you don't need any kind of written
No,
authorization?
no, they're FDA approved, but they're not prescription.
You find some at Walgreens too.
Yeah, there's a few stores that are starting to carry some of them just because of demand. You can get arnica at Walgreens and Rite Aid. Some of the more popular ones, the businesses are picking up on it.
My husband has osteoporosis, already had 1 shoulder replaced, has a lot of problems with degenerative spinal disease too. Getting this in it, the dissolving of the calcium, would that aggravate when he's got spurs on one side and degenerative spinal disease on the other?
Well, I would do it, the hydrangea and calcarb combination, but only for a couple of months. And then take maybe 3-4 months off and then do it again. Because I've seen a few cases where I did it too long, and these joints that were sort of fused together by the spurs came loose. And then,
Because his other shoulder, he's constantly complaining he can only lift it so far now.
now, is that the surgery one?
No, this is the other one.
Well,
I can't either.
that may be bone spurs, but it could be ligaments and tendons that have gotten stiff.
Well, they told me when he had this one was next, and he's
Yeah.
fighting it, you
Well,
know, really bad.
He probably has what's called a frozen shoulder.
Well, that's
And-
terrible.
Yeah, but we've had some pretty good success with that, using the hydrangea and calcart combination. And then you gotta get them doing exercises.
Yeah,
You gotta lean on a table like this and draw a circle on the floor. You draw a circle until it gets pain, and then you back it off. Do that every day, but make the circle bigger and bigger and bigger. And pretty soon you can start drawing a circle on the wall
Now, are you doing that with a bad arm?
with the bad arm.
Okay, because I want to try it.
But you start really small. Sometimes people are only able to draw like a 6-inch circle on the floor. But you go until it hurts, and then you back it down a little bit. But you gotta get this bigger and bigger and bigger. You gotta do it every day.
How many times?
Usually once or twice.
Try that.
do you recommend people, if they have problems, come in and get a thorough, full diagnosis, other than maybe something that's had 3-4 years?
Well, I see a lot of patients, kind of like consultations. They have their regular doctor. They just come and see me once a year or so, and already work on a specific problem. And that works really quite well, because I'm not interested in taking care of everybody's diabetes and high blood pressure and all that.
Well, he doesn't want to do surgery, he wants to find another alternative.
Yeah, well, that would be a good situation where you could come in. And we take most of the insurances except Priority Health and Blue Care Network. With Medicare, Blue Cross, and Aetna, and all those good things.
And when you do diagnosis, do you do the full body, like all of the problems that they're having, or just?
Yeah, I usually do. I spend an hour the first visit, and we try to do a thorough history to see what's going on. And, some people have, they're train wrecks, so you can't do it all at once.
Right.
But we focus on the most urgent things. Other questions? I'm not here trying to sell my services, but I did put together a book a couple of years ago. And feel underneath your table, there's a little piece of paper under some of the tables. And if you have one, you're going to pick up in the book. No, what's it say on it?
Book.
All right.
Nice.
There should be a couple more, and one that says CD. Anybody like them?
No, a couple of times he says CD.
All right.
All the chairs. He wants check over here.
But the whole idea of homeopathy is to take care of yourself, give yourself some tools. And it's just like, you're familiar with aspirin, you get a headache, you take an aspirin. Well, make a shift. Find something homeopathically that works for you. It's much safer and usually more effective.